Good day, everybody. My name is Pat Connor. I'm with Indiana LTAP. I'm the asset management engineer here, and so I help assist all of our local communities with their asset management data, training, and submissions, and also I help out with the annual operations reports. My goal is to provide a helpful video on kind of walking through the annual operations report. There's a lot of new municipalities this year that are required to turn in the annual operations report. And so I just wanted to spend a few minutes going through what it is and how to submit it, try to help the best we can in any way that we can. So thanks again for tuning in today. But I guess first, just a little bit about Indiana LTAP. Our goal here is to provide training and resources for our highway and street departments and everybody involved in that process. So today, the annual operations report kind of fits into that scope of work, and so hopefully you'll find this helpful and useful. But a little bit about the annual operations report, and what I'll be discussing here today is what it is and why we're discussing it, give a general overview and format of the annual operations report, provide some directions, descriptions, and definitions. I'll walk through an example of one and then talk about how to submit it and some of the submission requirements and where to find the actual Excel document that the State Board of Accounts uses as their form template to submit this report. And then I'll touch briefly on how it's used and why it's important to help maybe provide some insight there on where this data goes and how helpful it is. So why is it and why are we discussing it now? So what it is, you'll see it up here, AOR, Annual Operations Report. That's what that is. You'll find, if you want to get into the weeds and the details of it, look up the Indiana Code 8-17-4.1, and you will find everything you need, statutorily anyway, in there. But I think what I did here is just basically copy and paste it out what that Indiana Code says. So I'll just kind of walk through and highlight some of the components of that. But why it's important, why we're talking about it today, is that back in 2025, the requirement was that for municipalities that the population, it was required for municipalities with a population greater than 15,000 people. This last year in 2025, they changed that to a population threshold of 5,000. So that incorporates another 50 to 60 some municipalities in there that have never done this report before, and I've been getting a lot of calls on it, so I thought it'd be timely to put out just maybe some information out there to help with particularly the new communities, but also there's new people in the other municipalities and counties as well. So just to recap there, this report is required. It's an accounting system for local road and streets. It applies and it's required for all counties. That hasn't changed, and municipalities with a population threshold of 5,000 people. The other part to highlight here, this according to statute, the annual operation report must be completed and a copy filed with the State Board of Accounts, the governing body, and NDOT by June 1st, following the operational year, so calendar year. So just wrapped up calendar year 2025, and now so we're going to be reporting the calendar year 2025 receipts and disbursements for your highway and street departments by June 1st of 2026 is the current year that we're talking about here. And the way that you submit a copy of that report is by submitting it to our data management system. So I'll walk through that here at the end of the presentation as well, but just wanted to mention that at this point in the training and presentation. Another thing to highlight on here, this statute does have some teeth to it. As you see highlighted there, the state comptroller shall withhold the NVH distribution funds from any county or municipality on the certified list until they are in compliance. The certified list, if you look up at that first bullet point, it says on June 15th, the State Board of Accounts shall prepare a certified list of counties and municipalities that have not complied or have not submitted the annual operations report. So after that time, they may, it says they shall withhold your NVH funding until you get that report filed. So just a quick summary of what I've discussed so far. It's the annual operations report is a financial report for the highway and street department. So it's not for the entire city, town, or county. It's just what applies to your street departments and highway departments. It's required for all municipalities with a population greater than 5,000 people, as well as all counties. You're going to submit that to our data management system, and the due date for that is June 1st. So a couple of changes to the law, just to give some reference there. Historically, going back before 2018, the statute said it was required for all municipalities with a population greater than 20,000 people, but in 2018 they lowered that down to 15,000 people, and then in 2025, as I had mentioned previously, they reduced that population threshold down to 5,000 people. So to give you a brief overview and general format of it and kind of get you introduced to what the annual operations report looks like and some of the components to it, I'll just take a few minutes and walk you through that. But you'll see it's State Form 54400-8-19, and there is 8 sections. It's a spreadsheet, it's an Excel document, and there's 8 worksheets in there. And then the first worksheet is instructions, and then there's a cover sheet, and then there's the 6 sections that go along with that. So we'll walk through those here. Here is kind of a screenshot of that Excel document, at least the bottom of it, where you can find the different worksheets in that Excel document. And you see there on the left, instructions, and then there's the cover sheet, section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, section 5, and then the certification, or where you sign it. I just want to highlight here, as you're getting started in this, I would highly recommend opening up that instructions tab first and just kind of familiarizing yourself with it. There's a lot of definitions and instructions in there that are vital to filling out the report. But starting in section 1 here, financial statement, what you'll see here is kind of the general view of that document. And the main thing I want to highlight is the cells in yellow. Those are the cells that you can edit. Please don't try to edit anything in the rows, like renaming the receipts or intergovernmental, or as you walk through the different rows there. Those all have to stay the same, as well as all the funds and column headers along the top. So the motor vehicle highway restricted, local road and street, Cume Bridge, total common funds, other funds, total all funds. Those will all make more sense as I walk through the receipts and disbursement sections, but please don't change any of those. Only put into the numbers in the highlighted yellow cells. So for the financial statement here in section 1, the only things you'll be filling in are the cash balances for the NVH restricted, local road and street, Cume Bridge, and then any investments that you make throughout the year as of December 31st at the end of the calendar year. All those other cells that you see here will all be referenced in from the other worksheets that you'll fill in. So section 2 is the detail of receipts. Again, only edit the cells in yellow, and in this case there's a couple in orange. The cells in orange indicate specific fund types and fund disbursements and where they go to help provide direction on that. So you'll see up here, for example, cumulative bridge. It's a property tax. So over here in this row, general property taxes is where you would input the amount of receipts that you had from your cumulative bridge fund. For the cities and towns, you won't have a Cume Bridge fund. I did speak with a town yesterday. They got a Cume Road fund. And so what you would do if you have a cumulative road fund or any other fund, you would add that over here on the right side after the total all funds. When you open up the Excel document, there is, I want to say 6 or 7 columns already pre-populated over here. It says, and you can rename these, insert other funds. So you can type in there cumulative road, community crossings, rainy day, lit. If you have a TIF district that you repave some roads with, you would put that TIF name in there as well. So you can add in as many other fund types as that your highway and street departments are using. So you can insert more columns into there to build that out further if you have more than 5 or 6 that your street department or highway department is using. But also I want to highlight here these other orange cells. You got the motor vehicle highway distribution. So this is what comes from the comptroller's office. So you put in the NVH fund from the comptroller's office here, the NVH restricted right next to it, and then the LRS is below it right here in this column. And then what you'll see here, there's different sections. There's taxes, intergovernmental, charges for services, other operating receipts, and other financing sources. And in that instructions tab, it gives you detailed definitions and descriptions on what each of these sections mean, and also what the different state grants, federal grants, there's more information in that instructions tab. That's why that's vitally important to go through that probably beforehand and then reference back to it as you're filling in the report. Here is just kind of a blow up those 5 different sections. And then on the disbursements, section 3, we'll start there. Sometimes it's better to start in the disbursements and then the receipts, and then go back and fill in section 1, the financial report there. So on the disbursements, you'll see these sections here: general administration, unallocated, construction, reconstruction, preservation, and then under maintenance and repair, there's 2 different categories: winter operations, other maintenance and repair, and then finally other financing uses. And each of these categories, there's personal services, supplies, other services and charges, and capital outlay. So you'll see those repeated in the general administration, the construction, reconstruction, preservation, maintenance and repair sections as well. And there's more definitions and descriptions on what you can include in these other subcategories in the instructions tab. Also, I'll just highlight here on the NVH restricted. The NVH restricted is dedicated to construction, reconstruction, preservation. So we crossed out these cells in here just to help people not to accidentally put in funds for your NVH restricted in these other categories. They should only be included into the construction, reconstruction, preservation. And then on the section 4 is debt, where you report your debt, or if you have any road bonds out there, you would report that in this section. And then we'll talk about some of the definitions. Super helpful when you're filling out this report. Again, reference back to the instructions tab where they give these definitions, and you'll see a lot of I'm going to show you some screenshots from that instructions tab in there to help walk through these different definitions, descriptions, and direction. So on the receipt section, the taxes, it defines taxes in this category should include only those taxes that are levied directly by the local unit and would include general property, local income tax, or any other taxes. So these are what your city, town, or county revenue sources are coming up with. For example, here you got the wheel tax and excise surtax. It's a local option highway user tax. There's a couple different ways that locals report this in different funds. Some counties and cities and towns will deposit their wheel tax and excise surtax right into their motor vehicle highway account. And then there's others that will create their own fund, the wheel tax and excise surtax fund, and then deposit those funds in there. Either way is acceptable, but if you have your own fund, main thing to highlight here, this is where you would add these other fund types and just label those accordingly, and then put the funds in this cell corresponding with the wheel tax and excise surtax row. And then on the motor vehicle highway account, here's that distribution from the comptroller's office. So in the intergovernmental category, it's defined as distributions from the auditor of state or comptroller's office, as well as grants, loans, and transfers from other government agencies related to road and bridge funding. Please note this is where NVH distributions received from the state will be reported. So here highlighting where you report those actual distributions that you get from the comptroller's office, and you'd put it into these 2 cells, the restricted and non-restricted cells. Then likewise, with the local road and street, you get a separate distribution from the comptroller's office for that, and then you would put that into this column into your local road and street account from that distribution. If you had a community crossing expansion grant project this last year, or in 2025, or in 2024, or for this year it would be for 2025, you would put that into this cell here. So you'd come down here, you see state grants, put in that what you received from the Community Crossing Expansion Grant Program into this cell in the state grant lines. Now, if you had a federal aid project, bridge inspections, or a road project, a safety project, you would put in that designation number you have from INDOT or that fund description here, and then you would put it under the federal grants line corresponding to that federal project fund that you have for that project. So some of the other definitions that I copied and pasted out of the instructions tab, I won't go through these, and I'm not going to read these for you. You can pause the video and go back and reference back to this, or you can just go back to the instructions tab and read it for yourself there. But all these different categories are defined in that instructions tab, like charges for services, other operating receipts, and other financing sources. On the disbursements section, like I mentioned, they have it broken up into subcategories there, detailing personal services, supplies, other services and charges, as well as capital outlay. So you can find those definitions here. You can pause the video and read those as well, or go back to the instructions tab. But I will highlight here in the personal services, it's not just the hourly rate that you're paying your road foreman, for example. You can include any other costs that the county or city or town incurs by having that employee employed with your city or town. So insurances, retirement, it mentions unemployment, uniform allowances, self-insurance, and other factors in there. So if you added all those up, you could include that into the personal services for different project types in there. The general administration and unallocated, this is basically here, and I think it says it right here, the cost of administrative nature not allocated to any specific road or bridge project. So these expenses commonly referred to as overhead. They include supervisory or support staff, personal services, supplies and equipment, general office expenses, rent, printing, utilities, insurance, facility expenses, and it goes on and on and on there on what's in there. But basically it's the overhead that the highway and street departments have to maintain their program. Construction, reconstruction, preservation. There's a definition here: costs and expenses for work performed by internal forces or outside contractors that result in new or improved roadway, paved or unpaved, including capacity enhancement. So anything that we're doing to improve our roadways and bridges and right-of-way are all included into this construction, reconstruction, preservation. Here's a definition for preservation: prevent, delay, or reduce further deterioration and maintain or improve the functional condition of the system without increasing structural capacity and extended service life of the infrastructure. There's examples of what that includes in here: crack sealing, patching of pavement, deck patching for bridges are included in this category, as well as activities such as thin overlays or microsurfacing. And then in the pavement and bridge, again, referencing back to the instructions tab, it gives further detail on what those activities could be included in the construction, reconstruction, preservation category. So treatments such as thin overlays, wedge and leveling, mill and overlays, chip seals, fog seals, scrub seals, microsurfacing, and crack sealing. Again, this is an exhaustive list. It's just some examples of what could be included when we're considering construction, reconstruction, and preservation for pavement. And then also for bridge, there's a definition in here for some examples of some activities that could be included. It also lays out some guidance on what the right-of-way is and costs associated with construction, reconstruction, preservation in the right-of-way. Things such as sidewalks, ADA ramps, guardrails, traffic signals, maintaining your street signs are all included in the construction, reconstruction, preservation of right-of-way. So really anything being proactive is the difference between maintenance and preservation. Preservation are proactive things that you're planning out and performing to maintain our roads, bridges, and right-of-ways. And then getting into the maintenance and repair categories, just kind of walking through that. Again, there's winter operations and other maintenance and repair. And there's definitions for that as well. I have highlighted in red here. These are work that is performed in reaction. So you got reactive and proactive, reactive being in that maintenance category. So things such as, that are because of an event, a season, or activities that are done for short-term operational needs that do not have preservation value. Again, you can include materials, personnel, and equipment expenses in that maintenance and repair category. Then also in the winter operations, it says costs associated prior to, during, and following winter events such as planning, purchasing your salt or sand, your brine, and management equipment, preparation, usage, and human resources. Also includes the use of external resources and services contracted for winter operations. And then they also lay out in the instructions tab some examples for maintenance for pavement, bridges, and right-of-way. So they consider pothole filling, for example, a maintenance item since it's a reactive treatment, event cleanup, repairs due to vehicular accidents or storm damage to roadways. In the right-of-ways category, if you read down there, it says maintenance and repair of signs damaged from accidents, mowing, tree trimming. Those are all maintenance activities in the right-of-way. And then just walk through an example of a real example that I pulled out of the data management system here. So this is the detail of receipts, section 2. You can see they have their Cume Bridge Fund put into the right category, general property taxes, Cume Bridge. Here's the NVH and NVH restricted, and you can see they're, 50-50. They have 50% deposited in the NVH, 50% deposited into the NVH restricted. And then you can see their LRS distribution from the comptroller's office and the LRS account. This county also had some other funds that they put into their NVH fund, like their wheel tax and excise surtax. They had $400,000 from the wheel tax and excise surtax deposited into their NVH fund. Also highlight on here the Community Crossings Matching Grant, $1.2 million. And it is in the state grant line. So all checks out and looks good from my end here. On the disbursements, you can see here, I'll start here with the NVH restricted. They have nothing in the overhead, nothing in the winter operations and maintenance, but they have some disbursements in the construction, reconstruction, preservation, like you would see based on statutory requirements for NVH restricted. In their unrestricted account, they're paying for some personal services, supplies, and some of the overhead out of their NVH unrestricted. And then also we'll mention the Community Crossings Matching Grant Program, and it is in the construction, reconstruction, preservation category. So sometimes I'll see the Community Crossings Matching Grant funds being reported in the wrong category. So that's one of the things, as you submit the annual operations report, I will look to see if that Community Crossings Matching Grant Fund is in one of these cells here for the construction, reconstruction, preservation. And if it's not, I will send you a note saying, hey, could you move that up to one of the corresponding cells into the CRP category up here. And then you can see, based on what they put in on section 2 and section 3, it auto-populates section 1, the financial statement. They added in their cash balances at the beginning of the year, and then they added what they put in for investments, and then their cash and investments at the end of the year is auto-populated down there. So just an example of how this gets filled out and where those cells are referenced back to. And then on the cover sheet and certification, what you do obviously is put in the name of your town of Purdue, Boiler County. And then on the certification side of things, if you look in the instructions tab, what you're doing is submitting to us the Excel document. So you can't have, it's hard to sign an Excel document. There there are ways probably to do it, but what it says is keep the signed copy for your records for the State Board of Accounts. So it doesn't need to be signed. What you do is just type in the name of that city engineer or street commissioner and the mayor or president of the town council in the corresponding categories if you're a city, town, or county. So that's kind of an overview of what the annual operations report is. Now I'll kind of walk through how to submit it. So this is a screenshot of our data management system. If you have submitted your pavement asset management plan, you should be familiar with this and have an account already set up. But if you're not familiar with it and you're not the one in charge of submitting your pavement asset management plan, what you do is come to our website here, ltapdms.itap.purdue.edu / and you would create an account. And then what we would do on our end is approve your account. And then after your account is approved and we get you associated with the corresponding city, town, or county, you would come in here as you log in. This is what it would look like. And if you clicked on dashboard right here, you would see all the data request, what we call data requests, all the pavement asset management plan submissions, all the annual operations report submissions in here. And there would be a button over here that says edit document. You click on that edit document. And when you click on the edit document, you'll see the word there'll be a button for template. So if you click on template, you can download this form from there, from our data management system website right there. And then download it, fill it in, save it to your computer, and then upload it back into the data management system. Also, if you fill it out incorrectly or change the formatting of it, it will give you some validation errors in there. So the validation errors, if you click on notes, it'll tell you where those corresponding errors are at. So I get that question quite a bit. It'll say validation error 15, and then like, well, what is validation error 15? If you click on notes, it will say section 1, this line, this column, something's not right. So that's a good way to troubleshoot it. And if that is still not clear on where the errors are at, give me a call, send me an email, and we can help you out with that. But what your goal is to get that submitted, for it to say status. It'll say validated. That means it went through the system, and then what we'll do is come in here and approve it, and then after we approve it, you'll see it listed as processed. So it'll go from submitted to validated to processed. So how it's used, why this is important. What it does is, I guess on the local level, it helps for budget planning, helps local officials allocate future funds based on historical costs. Capital planning identifies needs for major purchases or long-term investments, such as new equipment and bridges. Performance tracking compares year-to-year productivity and investment levels. And it also shows transparency. It shows taxpayers and elected officials how our highway and street funds are being spent. And then at the state level, first of all, why it's important, it's in compliance with the Indiana Code 8-17-4.1 and State Board of Accounts standards. And then we also, what we do is, we'll pull all that data together and help tell that story statewide, the amount of investment going into our local road and highway streets for our state legislators. So when we have those discussions on road funding needs, we can see, well, here's the funds that all the local units and counties got from the gas tax, gas use tax via the MVH, LRS, community crossings. But then here's all the other funds that the local agencies are using to help maintain their road and bridge and transportation networks. So like an example, back in 2024, a couple of years ago now, we were having these road funding discussions at the State House. So we took all the pavement asset management plan data, all the bridge data, reported what the network conditions were, what the compositions were, and how much it would cost to maintain that our performance measures and condition levels and for our roads and bridges. And then we were able to use the annual operations report and report, there's a total of $1.6 billion that year that locals were investing into their local road and bridge network, transportation network, coming from other funding sources outside of the NVH, local road and street, and some of the dedicated road funding sources that you get from the state. So it's just a good way of help telling your story, justifying the work that you're doing, and the level of effort that you guys are putting in to our transportation network. So really highly valuable data. So hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions here, again, feel free to reach out to myself, Pat Connor. Here's my email and my office line. And also Jen Sharkey is in our office here, our Assistant Director for Engineering, is very familiar with this report and can help out as well. So if you don't get a hold of me, reach out to Jen and we'll get you in the right direction there.